ilkuhu wada jirkooday hilbaha adag ku gooyaane haddii iniba meel taagan tahay arax ma fenteene ittifaaq la'aan laguma helo libya iimaane abtirsiino reer hebela iyo oday kuufaan tuura indho fura hurdadu waa waxaad ku ibtilowdeen
Xaaji Aadan Afqalooc, merchant, warrior, poet. His story started in the Badia close to Erigabo. Just like most Somalis, Xaaji Aadan grew up as a nomad. When he was 4 years old, his family got attacked by a lion. The lion got a hold of Xaaji Aadan and ran away with him, dragging the young boy. Just as the lion was running with the child, carrying him through the rocky terrain, the lion got to his den and left Xaaji Aadan wounded. When this tragedy befell upon his family, even though they were patient, there was almost no hope they would see their child again. Aadan stayed almost a full day in the lion's den. Ilahi Amarkis, there was a herd of sheep grazing near where Xaaji Aadan was. One of the sheep went astray from the herd and saw the wounded child in a precarious situation. The sheep ran back to a young girl who was herding the sheep. It made a fuss and pulled the girl to the cave. There she saw Xaaji Aadan dripping in his own blood and rolling his eyes. She dusted Xaaji Aadan off, picked him up, and brought him to a place where he could be helped. Once they arrived, the people saw the state of the young boy and said there was no chance of him surviving. But by the will of Allah, the little boy recovered well. When he recovered and could speak again, he was identified as the son of Ahmed Hassan, whose son was recently taken by a lion. He was returned to his family, who were overwhelmed with joy. This was the first time that Allah had saved Xaaji Aadan Ahmed Afqalooc, and it was not the last. The nickname Afqalooc, crooked mouth, is derived from the wounds inflicted by the lion at that time. Xaaji Aadan didn't want to be a camel herder, but wanted to see the world. In 1902, Xaaji Aadan left for Yemen. There he became a sailor and had the opportunity to explore and go to different countries like Djibouti, the Gulf states, and Syria. After a while, he settled in Sana'a, where he was buying and selling goods from all over the world. In the 1920s, he was arrested and sentenced to death for killing a man while protecting his goods during the war between Aden and Sana'a. Xaaji Aadan got released or escaped and went to leave the country. He went to different places to gain knowledge. He did that in Obok, Massawa, Nubia, and Cairo. A fervent opponent of colonialism, Afqalooc was also participating in the wars of independence in Sudan and Eritrea. But unfortunately, both revolutions got crunched down. After a short spell in Ethiopia, Xaaji Aadan Afqalooc went to Syria and Palestine to open businesses, but quickly returned to fighting against the oppressive regimes of the French and the English. After a while, Xaaji Aadan left the Levant and went on a spree of different countries like Iran, Afghanistan, India, and Indonesia, where he became very successful in his business endeavors. An old man once asked Afqalooc, "Xaaji Aadan, how many languages do you speak?" To which he replied, "I was raised with the Somali language, but I have learned 32 languages along the way, some of which I only know a little, and others which I speak fluently." In 1941, after 39 years' absence, at the age of 70, Xaaji Aadan returned to Somalia. When he was away, Xaaji Aadan took part in the liberation struggles of the peoples of Sudan, Eritrea, and Palestine. As a result, he suffered multiple injuries and imprisonment. On the other hand, he gained a lot of experience and knowledge about the need to sacrifice lives and property to liberate the nation from their enemies and colonialism. He returned to his country and saw the same change as he saw in the other countries he lived in. Xaaji Aadan Ahmed Hassan's poems have become a source of inspiration and patriotism for the Somali people. His poetry forced Somalis to reject and fight against the tyranny of colonialism and fight for their independence and freedom. In 1943, when Xaaji Aadan was in prison for protesting against the English, he recited this poem. Wuxuu yiri,
gobonnimada hawlyari ninna kuma helayo rag horumar doonana waayaa hor jooga haasaawe jiib iyo hurdo kuma timaado hamayn nimaan u guurayn oo lama yidhaahde nimaan haara lagu yeelin hebel lama yidhaahdo halkay taal wax kaa xiga halis iyo dab weeye hore inaan u jiidhnaa hadafkeennu yahayo hamadii ujeeddaduna dhaxal harayo weeye halkaan caawa joognana rag baa noo hagaajee haamaanadaa gala laga haybadoystee haytaamihii gaandaa barye lagu hor joogay halyeygii nakruumiyo jamaal baa u hoydaye isba magacii uu helay baa loo haneeyee anna kama hiniyaaye taariikh ba iga hadhiyo haadbiidhig iyo bidhaa habra looma tumanine nin haraati diidaa hoggaan looga dhigaye nin sidayda hawlkari hohba kama yidhaahdo harash iyo nin liitaa ka halaahalaya hamba nimaan lahayn baa hagardaama moode higmad iyo bustaha xumi ka hagaagsan ruumiye hadhuudhkayga ii keen halla maaha xaalkuye.
One of his most famous poems was about the death of Sheikh Bashiir. At the end of the World War II, Sheikh Bashiir was leading the War of Independence in Togder. In Bur'a, he was rounding people to join his forces. He went to the religious leaders and told them to tell the people they should fight and liberate themselves. After long discussions and debates, most of the scholars agreed with the Sheikh, but suggested they shouldn't take arms against the British, but fight with the Quran on their side. Reciting the words of Allah and making dua to liberate them would, in their opinion, lead the Somalis to victory. Sheikh Bashiir couldn't swallow what the scholars said and took a cup and put it in front of the scholars. He told them to read the 30 juz of the Holy Quran and let that break the glass cup. They read it and couldn't break it. Sheikh Bashiir took his cane, said Bismillah, and broke the cup with one swift move. He looked at the religious scholars and said, Bisin an fi'l lahayn wahba mataro. Bismillah without effort doesn't achieve anything. Or Budka iyo bisinka hala isku daro. Combine the stick and Bismillah. Sheikh Bashiir led the rebellions in Iragabo, Bur'a, and Ainaba. There he was killed in 1947. His body was brought to Bur'a and laid out to the people who were denied to bury him. In Xaaji Bashiir, Xaaji Aadan Afqalooc describes the aftermath of Sheikh Bashiir's death and the British mistreatment of his body, and called on the people to continue the rebellion and to avenge Sheikh Bashiir and his followers, as well as warning them of the British settlers taking over the land. Wuxuu yiri,
duhur baa Bashiir lagu shanaqay daar agtiinna dahriga iyo laabtay rasaas kaga daloosheen isagoo dam iyo dhiig leh oo mara ku duuduuban dadkii uu nibcaa iyo kufriga daawasho u yimid dacsad iyo ahaaniyo cagba loogu sii daray meydkiisa daahira markii dibadda loo jiiday kolkii aaska loo diiday waa wada dul joogteen dar kaloo ciyaar lagu dilay iyo dawgal baa jireen oo aanay deera u hardiyin dadabgalkoodii ma duugoobin qaybdiid lafuu waana duxayaane daadii uu ahaabaa faarax jeelka loo diray iminkuu sidii dawri yahay dibadda meeraaye loo dii dadkii uu dhaliyo duunyadu dhaqaye dad oo idil soo eri ninkii daalinka ahaay ingiriis wuxuu damacsanaa reer hindiya diidiye daarihii bunjaab iyo ka kace dahabkii hoos yiile daymada haddeeray indhuhu dib u jalleecaane damaashaadku waa maxamed cali loo dabaaldegaye ka duuduubay Faransiis dhulkii Suuriyuu degay dargadii Lubnaan iyo ka guur degalkii Bayruudi dekadaha maraakiib shixnadan baa ka soo degay daad xoorta oo idil halkana lala damcaayaaye halka daawad xireedeedu tahay gaalada degi nin dayuurad iyo moodhar laa beer idiin dirane durgufkiina soo haray waxaan doonayuu garan.
In 1960, Somalia gained their independence. The new government was very hopeful in building this young nation. But as soon as independence was achieved, it was facing and causing a lot of problems. Instead of building a nation, a lot of politicians were building houses for themselves. Corruption, nepotism, injustice, and the tribalism blinded the successive governments. Xaaji Aadan Afqalooc, by now one of the most well-known poets, pointed these problems out and warned the people of these issues. The following poem, called Tabaalaha Waqtiga, or Dalmar, is one of the poems where Xaaji Aadan Afqalooc clearly shows the grief and turmoil that SYL governments have caused, which are now famous for their corruption and tribalism. This poem is directed to Zoppo, Minister of Interior. In this poem, Xaaji Aadan mentioned a lot of problems which Zoppo needs to look at. Wuxuu yiri,
dhibta timid jamhuuriyadda oo tahan la boobayo iskaa wax u tabciyo khaayinimo la isku taageeriye qawaaniin u taal iyo nidaam tahan ma yeelaan sida reer tafarre amar ma jiro la isku taabaco warqad sanan teeb kuugu qoray taabul kugu tuuriye waashmaan kolay ku tahay ninkii taabay meel dheregye taaj madaxa awr loo gashaa waa tusmahabow tuug daalin iyo caasi baad tamar u yeeshaane dembi baad u dhiibteen niman tuna ka sheegayne toorey af badan baw xidheen taariikh xoogsaday mid tacliinta loo soo diro tadhaqa oo liid ah oo tuhun ku jiro inuu ka tegay toobad iyo diinta oo aqal tilmaan liyo khamriga gacan togaaleeya oo uu talmiidkii yaraa taas ka baranayo iyana waa tabaalaha waqtiga taynu aragnaaye tu kaloo ka daran baa jirtee taana balan sheego jaamacad nin tegay oo digrii tuu la yimid haysta oo inuu dalkii wax u tariyo tabaca doonaya oo taana loo baahan yahay toogta sida joogta oo jaahil tigin adag dhidbaday taqadumkow diiday oo reerkii tegi waayay oo amal la'aan taagan iyana waa tabaalaha waqtiga taynu aragnaaye tu kaloo ka daran baa jirtee taana balan sheego haddaad adigu tuur leedihiyo tootir iyo qaallo mid kaleeto inaad toosisaa waa tu aan dhicine waxaa khaa'inada looga tegay tacabadii boobay nin baqoon ku taal buu ka baqay inay ka taabtaane haddaan tiriyo waxa aynu nahay waanta wahayaaye taariikhda weli sooma marin teenna oo kale tihii Israa'iil helay tani sallowdaaye anoon boogta wada taaban oo idin tusaaleeyey oo aan tambiih iyo islaax taana uga jeedo waa taar aan boosta ugu riday soobe ha u tago.
Al-Husseini, a Somali historian and author, said, "One of the strange things I saw about Xaaji was that in 1977, Xaaji was hit by a car and broke his hip. He was over 100 years old, but his broken bone has healed well and he walked without a limp. You would think Allah has given his body special health." Right until his death, Xaaji Aadan was still active in creating poems and taking part in poetic debates like Sinlay. The content of his poems was about qaranimo, nation building, and to get rid of tribalism. May God have mercy on him. Xaaji was a patriotic man who went far and wide. returned to his country and contributed to its freedom. Xaaji Aadan Afqalooc died in 1986 in Erigabo at the incredible age of 115 years old. Ilaahay ha u naxariiso. Thank you guys for watching. If you have enjoyed this video and want to hear from us again, be sure to hit the subscribe button before you go. Like the video and share it with friends or family who also want to learn more about Somali poetry and history. Also, follow Dhaqandoon on Instagram, where we post poetry translations and different things about Somali culture. See you guys in the next video. Obey, hello.